tell us your name? Did you live here? Did you die here? Do you want to take a trip? Hi, guys, and we are live one more time again here on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. Thank you for watching with us. Right over, you'd think as long as I've been doing this, I'd remember my orientation. Over here is Dagny, and down there is Lewis, and we're gonna have a good time today. My wife should be joining us here momentarily. Just remember that we provide these shows first and foremost for you, the watchers, for your entertainment. We are not by any means and do not claim to be scholars or experts in any of the topics we choose to cover. We're simply enthusiasts and storytellers who have fun with these topics while doing our best to respect individual beliefs. And please remember that this show right now is live and nothing is rehearsed or edited out later. What you see is what you get. However, the only exception to that is our revisited shows where we rebroadcast previous episodes. And speaking of, our very next revisited episode next Saturday will feature Lewis Powell. The first time he came in on our show with his Southern Spirit Guide, and he shared about a lot of the spooky tales he's found across the Southeast or the South in general. That was a fun show. And he was our very first special guest, and now he is an ET. How does it feel?
Yeah.
I'm very happy to be here.
Well,
Thank you for asking me.
Well, we appreciate you being an ET. I mean, we kept asking him back so much. I finally just said, "Well, why not just be an ET?" He made it all that.
I'm happy to have you.
Yes,
I'm happy to be here.
and you're. We have a comment. Somebody said, "Howdy, guys." It just says Facebook user. I don't know. Yes, by the way, we can broadcast. We are broadcasting live on Facebook right now, but we're doing it in our group and not the page. And I got to apologize to you folks because it's in a group. There's something different for us to be able to see who you are. You've got to give StreamYard your permission to use your comments. So I hope there's a link there. Oh, hey, Tommy. It's me, Tommy. Facebook user Tommy. And somebody's calling in. Hello.
Hey, Tommy.
Hey. We're glad you're watching, Tommy. We miss you, buddy. Tommy's one of our ETs. And we're going to go into the ET facts this week. And I just wanted to ask a question. What are some of your favorite creepy song lyrics? Some songs that we all might know, but have a creepy line here and there. Now, I just dropped my phone because that's where I got mine. I got on some notes on my phone. Dagny. There we go.
I've always loved how innocent and creepy these song lyrics are to Possum Kingdom by Toadies.
Yeah.
Where he's luring her into the boathouse to be his victim. And I'd say, let me see the image of my favorite line here. My favorite lines are, don't be afraid. I didn't mean to scare you. So help you, Jesus. I can promise you, you'll stay beautiful with dark hair and soft skin forever. Because he wants to make a doll out of her.
Ooh.
It's so creepy. But I love that it seems so. The music is uplifting and innocent.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like what's going on. I love that though.
Wow. That and who does that? Is that a Rob?
That's the Toadies.
The Toadies.
And the
Okay,
name of
because
Possum Kingdom.
Possum Kingdom. Okay. Now, before we came on, one of our ETs, Selena, had listed. Where did I put that? From the song, what'd she say? Rob
Zombie
Zombie's,
song.
yeah, Dragula. Dead, I am the one, exterminating sun, slipping through the trees, strangling the breeze. Dead, I am the sky, watching angels cry while they slowly turn, conquering the worm. Yeah, that's kind of creepy.
It's a good song though.
Uh-huh. And didn't you add a line on there?
Yeah,
Daggy,
as soon as I
dig
saw
through the
those
ditches
lines,
and burn through the witches and slam in the back of my Dracula. Okay.
that's the main chorus.
Yeah. Okay. That is kind of weird.
Yeah.
But it's Rob Zombie. You know, what are you going to do? Lewis, what you got for us?
Well, I'm going to go in a completely different direction, away from pop music or metal or that's not
Or
my
whatever
favorite.
that was.
Yeah.
Yes. There is a hymn. It's an old hymn that was published in the Sacred Heart hymnal in the mid 19th century. It's called Idumea, and it has the whole all of the text is really creepy because it's about dying and rising for the judgment day. But the very first line is, "And am I born to die, to lay this body down, and must my trembling spirit fly into the world unknown, a land of deepest shade, undimmed by human thought, the dreary regions of the dead, where all things are forgot."
Whoa.
And I just love that, particularly the dreary regions of
Yeah.
the dead.
Yeah.
That's
And
deep.
in a
I like it.
hymnal.
Oh, yes.
Well, any more?
That's just the first line. I could go on, but it
Yeah.
has several verses that I haven't had memorized.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't know if there was any other creepy lyrics you wanted to share.
That's it for that.
Okay. Well, I kind of went in a different direction too. I didn't go for the Rob Zombies and the Marilyn Mansons because we all know they're going to be strange and creepy. Okay.
Yeah.
This one might surprise you. I don't know, but to me, this is creepy. Billy Joel's "For the Longest Time." Remember his
Oh.
acapella 50 style?
I know that song real well.
Okay, listen at this line. I'm the voice you're hearing in the hall. And the greatest miracle of all is how I need you and how you needed me too. That hasn't happened for the longest time. But he's the voice you're hearing in the hall. What is going on there?
I haven't really thought about
I actually
that.
know the lyrics to that, and
Yeah.
I never paid attention to how strange they were.
Yeah, I mean, I did, and that's actually that's what gave me this idea because I'd heard it or something, and I love this song because I love a cappella music and singing, and that was running through my head one day, and I'm like, wait a minute, she's hearing a voice in the hall, and he says, "I'm that voice you're hearing in the hall." Wait a minute, that was just creepy. All right, I got two more. The Beatles, John, Paul, George, and Ringo, "Run for Your Life." Well, I'd rather see you dead, little girl, than to be with another man. You better keep your head, little girl, or I won't know where I am. You better run for your life if you can, little girl. Hide your head in the sand, little girl. Catch you with another man, that's the end, little girl.
Mm.
That's the Beatles?
That's the Beatles. Run for your life.
What?
Yes. Isn't that creepy?
I need to listen to that.
And of course, all week I've thought about the Police. Which one is the one? I'll be watching you. Every breath you take, every step you take, I'll be
I've
watching
always
you.
thought that was such a weird song.
Okay, that one's weird. But what about this one? Phil Collins, In the Air Tonight. And we know these lyrics, but until we stop and think about them, we're like, well, if you told me you were drowning, I would not lend a hand. I've seen your face before, my friend, but I don't know if you know who I am. I saw it with my own two eyes. So you can wipe off that grin. I know where you've been. It's all been a pack of lies.
Mm.
So, some creepy song lyrics.
I can tell you a real quick one that it's Tool does the song, and it's all about being transcending from your mortal body to another plane.
Oh, wow.
And when Kevin and I went to the Tool concert in New Orleans, he just was floored by it, like, whoa,
Yeah,
that's incredible. And he didn't know much about Tool. Well, just recently when he died, right after the funeral, I mean, that song struck him so hard, it was a moment, you know?
yeah.
And then as I was driving from the funeral to the memorial, the car radio was off. And it turned on and that song played from the beginning.
Wow. Okay, real quick, I'm going to post this in the group. Please go to the link that I'm showing you on Facebook. Don't worry about it on Twitch or YouTube. But if you're if you're watching on Facebook, please click that link, give them permission, give StreamYard permission to post your comments. I can see them, but it doesn't tell me who it is. It just says Facebook user. I mean, we know that first one was Tommy. And so if you just give them permission, it's no big deal. I don't know what the difference is. I was on chat with StreamYard this morning trying to figure out why my last two live streams didn't broadcast on Facebook. And their only advice was, well, just unconnect or disconnect from Facebook and then reconnect. And I said, well, won't that delete the show that I'm got scheduled? And they said, yeah. And I said, okay, well, I'll just do it to the group and see if that helps. And so far we're broadcasting. We're live at our Strange Friends group. Somebody else said hey to me, and I'm sorry, I don't know who it is. But if you'll give StreamYard your permission, they will tell us who is commenting. But thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all for commenting. Last show. Who saw last show? Well, Dagny and I were on it. So the Axe, Jack, and Holmes. We talked about the Austin, Texas axe murders, Jack the Ripper, and H.H. Holmes, and what their connections may be. And actually, we found connections between the axe murderer and Jack the Ripper. We found connections between H.H. Holmes and Jack the Ripper, and back and forth. But there's really no convincing evidence that they were all committed by the same person, other than if it were supernatural or paranormal. And we talked about those possibilities at the end of the show. And it was fun just going. Again, I mentioned this. It was, that sounds bad saying it was fun talking about a serial killer, but
we have a weird sense of fun.
Yes, we do. Strange.
Strange.
Strange. So, but it was an intriguing show. It was kind of cool going through all that. I mean, there was no way we could and our goal was not to cover all the details of each of the murder sprees, but just bring out some similarities between them all. But and then last week our revisited show was Phantom Phone Calls. How many of you remember that one? And the weird phone calls. And I think, in the very next show with Southern Spirit Guide, Lewis shared his story of a phantom phone call, but I'm not going to have you share it here because it will be on next week's revisited show again.
Yes.
And so people will get to hear your phantom phone call story. So tune in to Revisited next week. All right. If you are watching on YouTube, please remember to like and subscribe. And I'm getting tongue-tied. Subscribe. My grandson says it better. Watch.
Click that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.
See what I mean?
That's adorable.
Yeah, he says it's so much better. So listen to Tristan and please like and subscribe to the channel. All right. And if you can help us become a patron on Patreon. I've mentioned before, this does take a little bit of cash out of my pocket. Thankfully, it's not that much, but I have a life and bills just like everybody else. So this is kind of like taking them away from other things at times, but I'm not complaining because I do this because I love it. But if you could help me by being a patron on Patreon, I'd certainly appreciate it. And those of you that already are supporting us, it is deeply, deeply appreciated. So you can start with as little as $3 a month. And like I said, every little bit helps, and we certainly appreciate it. And Greg, who's been one of our regular watchers for a while now, said he's the one that posted about the Jeepers Creepers. We appreciate you watching, and we appreciate you posting and commenting. So if, again, I've seen this on other groups in Facebook that use StreamYard, and I see that little thing up there. Go to StreamYard Facebook and give them permission. But I've never had to do it because it was connected to my page. But now that we're doing it in the group, you need to give permission if you don't mind. So, in the past, we have always done strange sightings videos. Well, the last couple of times we haven't, and there was a hiccup when I was on vacation and then stuck in Tennessee for a while. So anyway, I kind of got out of the routine and been busy at times, but I haven't done a strange sightings video for this show. But I came across something just a few hours ago as I was getting ready for the show. I have a first cousin, lives in Mississippi. And you've seen me post pictures about this before, but they just saw this just today, just this morning, and captured this picture in South Mississippi. Now, that's what I call a sky cloud circle. We've seen them. You've seen me post pictures of them, and I think we've got it in the either the group or the page where some pictures that I personally took of the exact same phenomena over Mobile, Alabama. And this was just taken this morning, a few hours ago, in southern Mississippi. Have you ever seen those over Georgia?
I can't say that I have.
I have
Yeah.
not seen any, but I am wondering if it has anything to do with the grids people are seeing in the sky too. People
I
keep
don't
seeing
know.
these grids,
Yeah.
and
Well,
I've seen it myself, and I wonder if there's maybe a cloaked
Or a
vehicle
glitch.
up there or something, you know?
a glitch in the matrix.
Yeah. Or maybe just a parked UFO that's like
Yeah.
got cloaking device.
Or what was it on Star Trek, the holodeck? The program
love
is
the
breaking
holodeck.
down. It's breaking down, and you see the grid work behind everything.
Yes, yes.
Maybe that's what it is, So, all right. I just wanted to share that picture because I've seen those personally. I took a picture of one, and Lewis, we've talked about the Boynton Oak before. I was out taking pictures of the Boynton, or what I believe to be the Boynton Oak, and got one of those in the background. I didn't put it up here. I didn't have it to put on the show today because it's already in the group and on the page. You can find it there. But anyway, today we've done haunted bridges, and we're kind of expounding and expanding on that today with strange highways. Here we go. Are you ready for a road trip? How many times have you heard that? They say something, going over here, and everybody's like, road trip, but this is not your normal road trip. Well, and not your parents' road trip, unless, of course, unless your parents were Ed and Lorraine Warren. That is, so you might have had some of these kind of road trips. But today we travel down strange and haunted highways, looking into some highly unusual occurrences that have happened to normal people like you and me. Of course, the normal is in quotation marks.
Yeah.
We've compiled stories of myth, legend, lore, and strange things found or experienced on roadways, highways, and byways. And first, we want to talk about vanishing hitchhikers. I don't have a lot of artwork and stuff today because we're more focused on the stories. But on Route 44 in Rehoboth, Massachusetts, I always get tongue-tied on Massachusetts. Massachusetts. He's described as a 6-foot-tall, bearded, red-headed man with dark, lifeless eyes. He matches the description of a victim who died years ago in a terrible crash on that stretch of road. Locals warn against offering him a lift because of those who have had some bad experiences. One woman talks about her encounter with the red-headed hitchhiker, remembering that when she stopped for him, as he reached for her door handle, he suddenly evaporated, and then her car engine died. Frozen with fright, she could hear his maniacal laughter long after he had vanished from sight. Many folks in town will tell you to never, under any circumstances, drive Route 44 with anything less than a full car. Because one of the most common ways to see this phantom hitchhiker is in your rear view mirror as he appears in your back seat. Just as you look up and see him staring at you, he disappears. But then, all by itself, your car radio will start scanning stations so fast and loud that your car will begin to shake. And through the radio static, you'll hear that laugh. Who wants to drive Route 44 in Rehoboth?
Let's go try it.
I was going to say, Tom,
Yeah.
it sounded at the beginning, the description sounds a little like me, but I didn't know I had lifeless eyes.
No. And you got rid of the hair some time back.
Yes.
Because it says a bearded, red-headed man.
Yes.
But it's close. If you wore a hat.
I've got a lot more gray now, unfortunately.
And I got a lot more than you. All right, Lewis, tell us about Lydia's Bridge in Jamestown, North Carolina.
This story is about as classic a vanishing hitchhiker story as you can get. Since the early 1920s, there has been a hitchhiker who has been seen on Main Street, just outside of downtown Jamestown, North Carolina. And Jamestown is located between High Point and Greensboro, so right there in central North Carolina. But this is a fairly small town, and the hitchhiker is seen on Main Street near a railroad underpass. And over the years, this railroad underpass has been named Lydia's Bridge. And many people will drive this road at night, and people have seen this bedraggled young woman standing next to the road. They will stop and ask her if she needs any help. And of course, she will tell them that her boyfriend was in an accident, or she was in a car accident with her boyfriend, and he has left her there. And so she requests a ride. She'll get in the back seat, and the driver will usually ask questions. What's your name? And she'll mumble something, and she'll say, "Well, just drop me off at my parents' house in High Point." So High Point being only 5 or 6 miles, the driver will sometimes take her all the way to High Point, go to the address that she has listed, and in some versions of the legend, when they drive in the driveway, the driver turns around and the young woman is gone. Or else he'll go around to open her door, and she's gone at that point. And then he'll go to the door, he'll explain to the person answering the door what has just occurred, only to find out that this is the spirit of the resident's daughter.
Yes.
There are other versions whereby the driver will give her his sweater or his jacket or coat, and she'll disappear with it, only for the sweater or jacket or coat to reappear on her tombstone.
Yes, I've heard that one.
And
I think we go over that also under. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't want
but
to jump ahead.
the story has been told since the early 1920s, and the really popular version of this story was published in 1959 by the North Carolina author Nancy Roberts. And it was Nancy Roberts who gave Lydia her name. But it kind of set in motion a researcher from Jamestown, Michael Renegar, who wrote this book along with Amy Greer. And he started looking into this legend, spending years trying to track down the identity of Lydia. And after 30 years of searching, he was finally able to discover there was an accident in 1921 that happened near that bridge. The lady's name was not Lydia, and her name was actually Annie. He began to look into the whole story of why she was in this vehicle. She was a woman in her mid-30s, and which is somewhat unusual. Usually the legend is told as happening to a teenager. But he really looks into this story and comes up with some fascinating conclusions. And of course, meanwhile, Lydia continues to appear to drivers near her underpass just outside of Jamestown.
Wow. Wow. And they even wrote a book about it.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I was afraid you were going to jump ahead to our last vanishing hitchhiker, but
Mhm.
we're going to hold that one for the most famous one. We're going to save her for last. But
Oh, yes. Yes.
I mean, everything is, almost exactly the same.
Mhm.
On Road A229 in southeast England, a hitchhiker can be seen hiking near a well-known pub in the area. When the hitchhiker gets into the car, he will tell you all the things that have gone wrong in the world and how he could make them better. But once you reach a certain spot in the road, he disappears and then goes back to the beginning to start his short journey all over again. Yeah. Wouldn't you hate it? You pick up a hitchhiker and they're all they're wanting to talk about is politics.
Problems.
Or what was all, if they did this, I'd fix that. And it's like, come on, guy.
Sounds like your drunk uncle with unpopular
Yeah.
political opinions.
Could be. Okay. All right. Shelby County Road 47.
This is a story that was reported by my friend Kim Johnston in her book Haunted Shelby County, Alabama, and it takes place on Chelsea Road. Chelsea is Shelby County is just
Yeah.
outside of the Birmingham area, and Chelsea has become a popular suburb of Birmingham. But
Mhm.
Chelsea Road is also known as Shelby County Road 47, and people driving along that road after dark have reported seeing the apparition of a woman who has been described as kind of a hippie. Kim Johnston says she's staggering along the road in a flannel shirt and jeans. And sometimes she's appeared walking just alongside the road. And there have been a few incidents where she will actually leap out in front of the car.
Wow.
And of course, the driver stops their car to check on, this person they have apparently hit, only to find that there is nobody there and there's nobody
Yeah.
in the road. But that is the story from Chelsea Road in Shelby County.
Wow.
That's stressful.
Again, the
Oh, yeah.
earmark. Yeah, if you're driving down and somebody jumps out in front of you. Again, a lot of these you'll see the earmarks are the same,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to a young woman. Now, no specific location was given, but a witness reports that they hated driving by a certain graveyard at night on the way home because a male ghost would hop in and sit in the back seat. He looked solid. I could see him in the rearview mirror. Never told anyone until my nephew told me he hated driving past the same graveyard because the ghost of a man would hop in his car for a ride. He would tell him, "Now, if you ain't Jesus, get the hell out of my car." I just thought that was hilarious.
To the point. He's to the
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Wasn't it, let's see, back, I think when I was on vacation and, did the Bridgewater Triangle,
Mhm.
wasn't there a redheaded hitchhiker story from the Triangle? I
Don't remember off the top of my head.
I was thinking there was a hitchhiker up there because they were talking about him being in the back seat and in choosing to sit in the back seat instead of sitting in the front seat.
Mhm.
And they were talking. It may have been another story, another show, but I remember Andrea and John talking about, how rude would that be? You pull over to give somebody a ride and they sit in the back seat, like, what am I, your chauffeur?
Yeah.
I offered you a ride, not to be your chauffeur. But then another anonymous girl hitchhiker, no location given, but a couple was traveling down a country road and saw a young woman. And because they thought it was dangerous for a young woman to be out hitchhiking so late at night, they stopped and offered her a lift home. She got in at the back and gave the address. And when they arrived there, they turned around to let the girl know, but before she got out, but there was nobody there. The next day, they went to that address to check to see if the girl got home. I mean, she disappeared out of your car. What'd she do? Jump out, Jump out the window? What, I don't know what they were thinking. But they said they went to the home, and an older woman answered the door, and they asked her about the young woman they had dropped off. The woman said that it must have been her daughter, that one Saturday night she'd gone out with some friends to dance at a club in the next town, but on their way home, they were T-boned and smashed into by a car that went through a stop sign, and she was instantly killed. She said people often knock on her front door, just as we did, to ask the same question. But she said the daughter was taken so suddenly that she just wants to come home, as she never got to that night. Now, we've kind of alluded to it a couple of times, but that story and some previous ones, the most famous vanishing hitchhiker is called Resurrection Mary around Chicago. Dagny has a personal story that she's going to share in just a second, but the legend is, and you've heard this with we touched on it in Lewis's story, the one I just read. The legend is a young gentleman is out dancing at a local ballroom. So that tells you when it was. It was still called a ballroom. So this was in the 20s and 30s. And he meets a pretty young girl with long blonde hair wearing a white dancing dress. She seems very quiet and actually quite cold to the touch. But there's something about her that's both exciting and mysterious. Toward the end of the evening, he offers the young lady a ride home, and she accepts. On the way home, they pass by a local cemetery, and the girl seems very anxious and signals the young man to drop her off. The gentleman hesitates because it's late, and there doesn't seem to be any residences nearby. But because she is so persistent and agitated, he reluctantly pulls over. The young lady jumps from the car and runs toward the locked gates of the cemetery, where she seems to pass through easily and then promptly disappears. He remembers the address that the young lady had written down on a napkin, and the next day he proceeds to the address to make sure she made it home safely, only to be met by an older woman lamenting the loss of her daughter some years ago, being the victim of a hit-and-run driver as she was coming home from a night of dancing. The young man notices a photograph on the coffee table and immediately recognizes it as the woman that he had danced with the night before.
Now, I just want to throw this in, if you'll let me.
Of course.
The story of this gentleman, I've actually seen video of an interview with him, and
Yes.
this happened. I believe it was the late 40s,
Right.
and this man, told his story all over the place. But the version that I remember, he drops her off right at the gates of Resurrection Cemetery, and she gets out of the car, and as she's crossing in front of the car, she dematerializes. But there's also an interesting side note to that, in that the iron fence right next to the gate actually has handprints on it where two of the bars have been pulled apart.
Mm-hmm.
And these are hollow iron fence bars that would be very difficult for someone just to pull apart with their hands. But they actually have handprints on them where they have been pulled apart.
Yes, I've heard that as well.
They were getting a lot of the Resurrection Cemetery was getting a lot of flocking of people because of that, and they decided to remove them.
Yeah, I'd heard that. I'd heard that too. That if they didn't get rid of them, they're still in storage there. But yeah, because of so many people coming to see the gates with the handprints in them, they had to remove them and put them somewhere else. They didn't destroy them, from what I understand, but they have been just removed. But and another angle to that story, hearkening back to what you mentioned earlier, that didn't mention it where I found the legend, but I've heard it a couple of different places where the night was kind of chilly, so the man offered her his jacket, and she was wearing his jacket when she hopped out of the car and ran toward the cemetery. And so the next day when he's talking to her mother, she said, well, she's buried at Resurrection Cemetery. And so he goes and finds her grave, and there on the grave, folded and neatly laying, is his jacket that he had offered her the night before. There is a real resurrection cemetery. It's on Archer Road in Chicago, possibly one of the most haunted areas, if you believe all this, in all of Chicago. It's that stretch of Archer between Resurrection Cemetery and the St. James SAG Church. It weaves its way through forests, lakes, and multiple graveyards, along all with their own terrifying tales. Ghostly monks haunt the areas around the St. James SAG, and the gray baby lurks at the Sacred Heart Cemetery. And phantom horse riders cross the street at the nearby 95th and Keene. So if we wanted to, we could spend several shows just on Archer Road.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Chicago's Resurrection Mary is one of the most famous vanishing hitchhikers ever. She's been scaring motorists on Archer Avenue since the 1930s with her consistent appearances, and she shows no sign of slowing down. But we can go on deep into that if we want to. But like I said, we could spend the whole shows on there. But Dagny had her own experience with Resurrection Mary, and she's going to tell us about that right now.
Yeah, I heard from a dispatcher that did tours of haunted Chicago. He was a dispatcher at my EMS station, and he told me about Resurrection Mary and told me where to go and what to look for if I wanted to check it out. So one day me and a couple other friends happened to be in the mood for an adventure, so I talked him into it, and my friend drove us. We were in this Buick. He drove us to the cemetery. We drove around looking for the markers the way he described, because, I'm not going to go asking the groundskeeper, because they'll be like, wait, you're looking for a ghost. No. But so we're going around looking, and we finally find the site that he was talking about, which was what people believed to be the site of Resurrection Mary. Come to find out through research for this show, I realized it was nothing to do with her at all. But That's the site we went to. And we parked the car, we got out, went a few yards over, looked at the stone. We were talking, it was sunset. It was almost sunset. And I decided I wanted a cigarette, so I went back to the car, opened the door, leaned inside. I had one foot still on the ground. I'm like reaching around in my bag, and I hear whispering right next to me. And it's the moment I heard it, my body just felt it. I could feel the presence of something paranormal for real. Like, I was like, I don't know. I was like, had static inside of me, And so I knew what it was, because that's what we came for. And I was like, no way. And I look over and she is as clear as I am right now. I mean, just a woman sitting next to me, this small build, almost my size build, in this like satin kind of dress with like a V-neck, and had this little like sideways tie thing going across her head like a headband, and she's just looking right at me, and her hair was like probably up to here, and it was blonde, straight blonde hair, and I didn't understand what she had whispered to me. I really couldn't comprehend what she was trying to say, but I'm looking at her, and then I guess during that moment, my friends had looked over, saw what was going on, saw there was someone in the car. They comprehended, we were here to see someone in a white dress that gets in people's cars. So they panicked completely, jumped into the car with me, which to this day I'm like, whatever. They wanted out of the cemetery. They wanted to get in the car, get out of the cemetery as fast as possible. So even though there was something in the car with, yes. It's like, okay, you're just gonna have to scoot over. We got to go. Yeah. So I mean, these are these are both the people that were with me are very non-believers, so they were not expecting to see something, and when they did, they didn't know how to handle it.
Wow. Yeah.
So we drove in circles and circles and circles throughout the cemetery, trying to get to the exit, and we kept ending up right back where we parked,
Oh, wow.
And it was like we were taking lefts, rights, left, and right back where we parked, like over and over for about 10 straight minutes. She sat there next to me. She whispered again throughout this circular driving, and I again couldn't understand what she was trying to say.
Yeah.
But we finally found the exit, and when we found the exit, she disappeared, and we left.
Wow.
Wow.
But she was just chilling, sitting with me, and thank God I was the one in the back seat. I don't know if these people would have handled it. But
Wow.
we were driving much too fast for a cemetery, that's for sure.
Yeah. They were ready to go.
But yeah, she was
It is
clear
time
as
to
day
go.
and sitting right next to me. I was like, wow, hi.
And
Nice to meet you, Mary. You know?
cool.
But from the
Well,
research I did, I found that a lot of people are starting to believe that the girl is not named Mary.
right. Now, this is
That-
a picture that they think
That's
originally
who everyone
thought.
yeah, but it's
Yeah.
actually very far off, and that's the woman that gravestone belongs to.
Yeah.
However, that
Here's
is
the
not who I
cemetery.
saw. That is not at all anything like the dates of her. But you can see all those circles we can drive through there.
Yeah.
It's a maze. It's a crazy maze. And it was amusing trying to see this guy try to get back out.
Yeah.
It's always fun when
Wow.
it's someone that does not believe in paranormal at all, and their reaction to
Well,
having it right in their face. They're like,
yeah.
wait, what's going on here?
I think, just me personally, that they just put a name to a phenomenon.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, whether they'll be able to, anyone will actually be able to prove that a woman named Mary is haunting all this area, I don't know, because her story, even though there's earmarks all the way through the story, they're the same, no matter who tells the story, or let's put it this way, no matter who experiences this Mary, they can't put a definitive real person behind the legend. One of my favorite podcasts, they did a whole 3 or 4 shows on Resurrection Mary, and that's what they come up with. You know, there's just so many variations, and like you heard from Lewis earlier, the same stories being told in different cities. The same exact story. So they just call it Lydia in, my mind just went blank.
Jamestown, North Carolina.
And Mary in Chicago, and they probably call her Jezebel, New Orleans. I don't know. You know, I mean, there's I mean, it's the same story, but what's unique is the fact that it is happening. You know, and I think we could actually put a broader aspect to it and say it's not just a woman. This phenomena has happened, and they've seen men, and in some cases children. Hopefully they didn't have black eyes. You know, you've seen different people get picked up in the car, or Lynn in the comments shared one that happened 30 years ago in Gulf Shores the night before Easter. A man who's on the north side of the bridge. There's a bridge that goes over into Gulf Shores. And he was hitchhiking and raining. It was cold, and he would get picked up at the foot of the bridge on the north side, going south onto Gulf Shores. And by the time they get to the foot of the bridge on the south side, he'd be gone. And supposedly this happened over and over again that same night. People pick up a hitchhiker on the north side of the bridge, and by the time they get to the south side, he's gone. I just wonder if he was redheaded, Lewis.
I'm interested to know, did you say it was the night before Easter?
Yes. She said, Lynn said it was about 30 years ago.
Night before Easter, you know what happens the night before Easter?
The Easter bunny comes and lays out
And
his eggs.
Jesus rises again. He was hitchhiking.
Well,
where
that
he
was.
go.
I don't think Jesus rose from the dead in Gulf Shores, Alabama. That's just me. I could be wrong. Okay. We do want to cover a couple more aspects of haunted highways, but let me say this right now. There is no way we're going to get to this because I wanted to talk about all kind of different things to do with haunted highways, and we've only got time to cover a few of them. The next thing I want to talk about is apparitions or cryptids. Lewis, I had picked out a story that you had shared in the Haunted Bridges show, but you said you had a better one for this section.
Well, actually, after hearing Dagny's story, it did make me think of a personal story that happened to me. When I was, this was just a few years ago, I was working up in Cherokee, North Carolina, and Cherokee is at the southern end of the Blue Ridge Parkway. And one of my Cherokee friends and I decided one evening to go out looking for ghost lights. And we drove along the Blue Ridge Parkway up to one of the stops. I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's a stop that is just outside of the city of Cherokee, and you can even overlook the city from the parking lot. So we decided to go up and park in the parking lot and sit there. And this is just, I mean, literally feet off of the Blue Ridge Parkway. So we're sitting there in this dark parking lot in my car trying to look for ghost lights, and we're sitting there, and after a while our eyes had adjusted to the dark, and we could tell that we were totally alone up there in this parking lot. So we're sitting there, and I turned to my friend in the passenger seat to say something, and when I did, I see movement in the rearview mirror. And I focused on the rear view mirror, and I see this just dark, shadowy figure step out from behind my car.
Wow.
And at the same moment, and my windows were open, I could hear the sound of movement in the parking lot. And so I just turned to my friend. I said, I think we need to go. And
Hey,
so
time to go.
she said, I think it's time. So we cranked up the car and we got out of there. And as we're driving, she says, "Don't tell me what you just saw, because I think I saw it as well." So we got back on the road, and she said, you can tell me what you saw. And I explained that I saw this just dark black mass. And she said, yes, I saw it too. And
Wow.
she seemed to believe it was a Cherokee booger, which they're just mischievous Cherokee spirits.
Yeah.
And it really put me on edge. I mean, in general, when I've had experiences, a lot of times it's kind of elating, but this was an experience that I don't know that I want to have again.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the story that I was going to tell is a story from West Virginia, Berkeley County, West Virginia, right along West Virginia Route 901. Some years ago, there was a couple driving their car down the road late one evening in October, and near a small creek called Harlan Run, this couple encounters this bank of fog, and they also
Wow.
noticed that the temperature in their car began to drop, and
Yeah.
the fog begins to take on this kind of greenish hue. And suddenly the car just stops and the engine goes dead, headlights cut off, and this couple is left sitting in the dark, and it's also cold.
Mm. Yeah.
So, of course, they got to a few moments later when their eyes had adjusted to the dark, and they begin to see a man struggling up the hill towards the road. And as he gets closer to the car, they realize he is a Confederate soldier,
Yeah.
and he appears as if he has been wounded. He walks up towards the car and obviously takes notice of this couple sitting there, and he walks to the front of the car and he places both of his hands on the hood
Oh
and
man.
just leans over and looks towards this
Oh
frightened
boy.
couple. And then he just collapses and disappears in front of the car. So the husband gets out of the car and he
Wow.
walks around to the front, and there is this soldier laying there in the middle of the road. So he leans down to see if this man needs any help. And as he gets closer, all of a sudden the man disappears.
Wow.
And the driver did look up in time to see that there were two bloody handprints on the hood of the car that
Wow.
also disappeared just a moment later.
Wow. A ghostly soldier.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, that story has it all. It has the fog, it has the car going dead,
Oh yeah.
and the soldier crawling up. That is so cool. It kind of reminds me of Elizabeth telling about the Confederate soldiers that hang around her house.
Oh yes. Yeah.
All right. The ghostly prisoner, Lewis, before we go on to some
Oh.
cryptids.
Oh yes, this is a story from my hometown here in LaGrange. This was told to me by a friend of mine who has an interest in ghosts, and the first time I sat down and talked to her about ghosts, she tells me the story. She was out driving late one evening with a group of friends in the car, and they were driving one of the country roads just outside of town, and there was a storm coming up, and so there was thunder and lightning, and one of the flashes of lightning revealed a man dressed in solid white standing in the middle of the road.
Hmm.
And so they quickly came up on the spot where this man had been standing, and their headlights revealed that there was no one there. So my friend is one of these types who will stop and help anybody. So she stops the car, and she and her friends got out with their flashlights, and they looked around, checked the ditches, and there was no one there.
Wow.
Well, she loves telling ghost stories, so she ends up telling the story all over the place. And one afternoon, she tells the story while she's getting her hair done. And as she's telling the story, the person sitting next to her speaks up and says, "Where did that happen?" And so my friend explained, and the lady says, "I think I know who that was." And
Oh.
the lady went on to explain that she was an EMT, and she had responded to an emergency call where a prison work crew had been out on the side of the road mowing, and as they were mowing, one of the mowers threw up a rock, and it struck one of the prisoners in the neck, and
Ugh.
I guess it severed the jugular,
Ugh.
and this man began to bleed out. And the EMT went on to say, "We got called to the scene, and that man died in my arms."
Wow.
So the reason he would have been wearing all white is that the prison uniforms, at least around here, are a solid white outfit with a navy stripe down the side of the trousers.
Oh, okay.
So my friend is convinced that she saw this man hanging out on the in the middle
Wow.
of the road this one night.
Wow. Oh boy. And it's kind of cool that somebody else corroborated that.
Yes, yes.
I didn't put it in the notes, but that reminded me. One night we were on tour, and we were going through a section of South Royal Street, and we were winding down the tour. It was over, and some of the folks were coming across the street, and a couple of them had dowsing rods, and one of them had my EMF meter. And they would get to the middle of the street, and the EMF meter would spike, and the dowsing rods would go crazy. And they walked completely across the street, and it would stop. They walked back to the middle of the street, everything would go crazy, and walk back. And honestly, there could have been some infrastructure down below the street, cables or whatnot, but it only happened in this one section of the middle of the street. And we had a group of like 25 or so folks, and we're all milling around, trying to, or we're talking about this. Why would this happen? What was going on? And it continued to happen. The people with the EMF meter and the dowsing rods, they kept walking back and forth through the area because it was just kind of wild. Every time they'd hit this one spot, everything would spike. And somebody in the group said, wait a minute. Don't y'all remember that it was at this exact location that one year, years ago, Mardi Gras float was coming through and a man fell off and he was killed right here at this location.
Oh, wow.
And then about 35, 40 years later, or maybe not that long, but about 30 years later, in the same exact location, his son fell off a Mardi Gras float and was killed in the same place.
Oh, wow.
And right where these meters and dowsing rods were going crazy.
That's weird.
Right in the middle of the street. That was wild.
Now, was that Royal Street in Mobile or New
Yes,
Orleans?
Mobile.
Okay.
Yeah. It was just south of Fort Condy. Over on the east side toward the river, there's a big parking lot across from Fort Condy, goes down a good width toward Fort Dead Ends at the interstate and stuff. And we would meet in that parking lot behind Fort Condy on the other side of the road, actually. And it was as we were walking back across Royal Street that all this activity began to happen right in the middle of the street. And I didn't look it up, to confirm it, but there were several people on the tour said, we remember this happening, that the father and the son died in the same location on this street right here. And that's where the bells and whistles were happening. That's awesome. And that prisoner, have there been any more sightings of that prisoner in that location? Do you know?
Not that I know of.
Okay. All right, cool. Now, in Southbury, Connecticut, on Jeremy Swamp Road, according to an urban legend, drivers with stalled vehicles have vanished before their tow truck arrives, attacked by what is called the melon heads. We're not talking about the candy. These humanoid cryptids are also the focus of folklore in Ohio and Michigan. Now, the melon heads supposedly live on the outskirts of town in the heavily wooded country roads known as melon head roads. How many of you ever heard of melon heads, a cryptid?
Not at all.
I think I have.
Yeah, I'm calling them a cryptid because they don't really go into description as to, are these outcasts from societies or are these animals? They just say that they're small humanoids with oversized heads that live in the woods. They survive by eating small animals, stray cats, human flesh, usually the flesh of teenagers. So So you can see where that's being used as a tool by parents.
Yeah, totally. That's what I thought too.
All right. There was a werewolf seen on Sanibel Island in Florida. This guy says, I was driving across the causeway on my way home from work around midnight. I went to accelerate because I was over the bridge and a huge dog-like creature walked in front of my car. It looked ragged. It was as tall as the hood of my car, really furry with fang-like teeth hanging out the sides of its mouth. It looked to me like I was in the way, then kind of sauntered off toward the beach. He says it scared the hell out of me. So it wasn't a very huge creature if it only stood to the top of the hood, but still he said it was walking around from what he described on two legs. And then there's the Lost Tres Hermanas on Ortega Road in Montecito, California. They were supposedly killed by highway bandits on Ortega Ridge Road. Some say their apparitions can be spotted by the side of the road. And a Mothman has been seen east of Cleveland, Ohio. This guy says he drives a delivery truck at night, and he said the area is pretty creepy anyway, but he's driving west towards Chesterland, Ohio, and he sees this huge figure flying right at me in the moonlight. He said it was huge. I realized I was about to hit it. He said, I realized it was about to hit the windshield, and so I ducked down below the dash. And as I did, I heard a loud thud at the front of my box. He's a truck driver above the cab of the Freightliner. I hit the brakes and came to a stop. And he said, I've thought about it for a few seconds before if I should get out, but I did it anyway because I had to see what it was. He said, I get around and walk to the back of the truck, and I see it laying on the side of the road about 50 yards away. He said the thing was man-sized, but I figured it must have been a huge hawk or maybe an eagle that I had killed. So I started walking up to it thinking it had to be dead. And then all of a sudden the thing rolls over, stands up on two legs, jumps, and flies off. He said this thing took a hit at probably 45 mile an hour straight to an aluminum box, and it lived. When it stood up, he said, I swear it thought it was a man at least 5 foot 8 inches tall and not a bird. He said, I don't know what it was. He said, when it flew off, I got scared and ran back to the truck and drove a few more miles down. He stopped at a gas station to get out, and he looked up in the front of the box of this trailer. He said, there are wing prints about 6 foot across in the dirt and grime. And he said, not the feathery bird shaped, but bat shaped. He said, if I could describe the looks of it, the closest thing I can come up with is it looked like a monster from, here you go, Jeepers Creepers, or maybe the Mothman. I mean, the guy swears he's not making it up, and he says it freaks me out every time I go down the road. Now, another ghostly apparition I wanted to touch on before we go into phantom vehicles, and we may not have time to do all this. I've already cut out more than half of the outline or the research that I've done. Excuse me. But I want to get into phantom vehicles for a little bit, but I want to talk about one more, an apparition in Mobile, Alabama. Now, honestly, I haven't heard of it much in the past 20 years or so, but there used to be a legend about in the early morning hours in downtown Mobile, a fog does creep in. The lowlands that Mobile was built on is still very swampy, very foggy. And if you're out and about in the wee hours of the morning, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, there is a deep fog that penetrates downtown Mobile most of the time. We found out from an engineer that they have water pumps in the basements of all the buildings running 24 hours a day because it stays so wet. And you may have heard a few of the hurricanes, Mobile floods easily. But there was a ghostly legend, supposedly some sightings of seeing a woman in Victorian dress floating through the fog early in the mornings. and she became known as the Floating Islands. And I was going to let Lewis, and I both have researched this story, but I was going to let Lewis share why this came to be known as the Floating Islands.
Well, this was a lady by the name of Mary Eoline Islands, and she lived in a house at 655 St. Emmanuel Street. And she was an ardent Catholic, and she would take on a daily basis the same route from her home to celebrate mass at the cathedral in downtown. And there are various legends about her life that she possibly had a lover who maybe sailed out on one of the ships out of Mobile, never returned, or perhaps she had been engaged to a man who later spurned her affection, or quite possibly that she was prepared to be married in that cathedral, and that her lover left her standing at the altar. But one of the reasons that she is in Victorian dress is that she supposedly kept all of her trousseau, all of the dresses that she had gathered for her wedding, and she continued to dress in those dresses even up until her death in the late 1930s. And so that is why she always appears in Victorian dress. But that's really all that I know about this story.
Well, it was.
So I'll send it back to you.
Well, I mean, you covered the basic tenets of it. I mean, that's what it is. Dagny, your plane's flying over again. She caught the mute button. The basic. I mean, that's the story in a nutshell. But you reminded me, and I didn't think about it just now. I've got a picture somewhere in all of my research of her gravestone because she was a real woman, and like she's been called the Floating Islands. Islands, but basically that's a misnomer because it's a misunderstanding because of her name last name is Islands, Eilands. But the legend came to be known as the Floating Islands. And honestly, I'm going to tell you the God's honest truth. And Lewis, you let me know if you've heard anything, but I've never come across an actual sighting of the apparition in the fog.
I haven't either.
I've come across the legend that you can see her in the fog, even to this day. but I've never found an actual sighting. So, but it is a cool story, and of course we don't know for sure whether she was left standing at the altar and that's why she continues to wear that dress, or if she was wearing the dress on the day her lover hopped aboard the ship to go seek his fortune and he never returned. I don't know, but the basic the legend is she walks from the church to the docks every day through the fog, but down those foggy streets. Now I wanted to touch on, my God, we're almost at an hour and a half. We're at about an hour and 17. Don't y'all love doing this show? I mean, I told the guys earlier, for those of you that are watching, I just had to stop the outline. I mean, there was so much I could put in here, but I do want to go over some phantom vehicles. I thought these were just so cool. Tim Shepard, one of our ETs, and he's been, stuff's come up here lately where he hadn't been able to be with me, but I was trying to groom him into being my co-host and do some of the operational things behind the scenes. And he ran the show for me a couple of times while I was out and done a great job. But he had something come up, a medical emergency. It was with his wife, so he couldn't be here. But he had already sent me this story. He said on I-75 southbound in Kansas, a vehicle has been running other vehicles off the road for decades. But get this. It turns out that it's actually saving them from a possible accident with an oncoming vehicle. It's running cars off the road, but when they get run off the road, they realize, oh my God, there was a car just about to head-on collision. Isn't that wild? You get run off the road and the car disappears, but then you realize that because if it hadn't run you off the road, you'd have gotten creamed. You're like, whoa. Both of them is, where you have to stop and catch your breath for a little bit. Now, I got two similar stories here that I thought were just so ironic. These are very similar. One happened in England. The other happened in Texas, I believe, Wichita Falls. We'll get to that one in a second. This ghost crash. Get this. On the A3, it's been an urban legend now in Surrey for nearly 18 years. It was the Surrey police had a Christmas party, but this was a call came into the Surrey police after the Christmas party that a member of the public reported seeing a car lose control and leave the A3 in Surrey about 100 meters before Emergency Road. It seemed like a normal call, but when the officers turned up on the scene, they couldn't find any evidence of a crash. Finally, police found a maroon Vauxhall Astra nose down in the ditch nearby, covered in undergrowth. It was just one thing wrong. This car had been undiscovered for about 5 months that it had been there. And then just a few feet away, they found a dead body. Been there for months. The body was identified from dental records as that of a 21-year-old Christopher Brian Chandler, who was wanted for robbery and had been on the run from Metropolitan Police since July the 16th of that year. Now, that's what's
I think karma got him.
Yeah. Yeah, but then somebody wanted them to know. Karma got him, but he got away. Nobody knew who it was, that he had done it. But somebody reports a crash. They go out to investigate. There's no crash. But as they just start milling around, they find a crash from like 5 months earlier and a dead body. Wow.
Weird.
Okay. And then get this one. On I-44 in Texas, my daughter and I were driving from Wichita Falls, Texas to Oklahoma City. I was trying to catch a plane home, and it was 4:05 a.m. Now get this. I remember the time because I was afraid we'd miss our flight. The highway was empty. We were almost out of the Lawton city limits. I think that's Lawton, Oklahoma, actually. When we saw an older model car, light blue or silver, launch off an embankment, roll 3 or 4 times, end over end. I could actually see a human fly through the air. I pulled over and called 911 and gave them the GPS coordinates of the overpass. I asked the dispatch if I should back down the highway, and she told me not to because there was an officer less than 2 minutes away. But 20 minutes later, I get a call from the police asking exactly where the wreck had happened. And I repeated the info. The officer said that he was sitting at the location and there was nothing there. Not a skid mark, broken glass, or flattened grass. Nothing at all. She said, when I got home, I Googled it. And this is what I found out. Exactly 10 years prior, a group of teenagers were speeding down a suburban road when they lost control, flipped over a guide rail, and rolled down an embankment. All 6 kids were killed. They were driving a 1986 Oldsmobile. The time of the accident, 4:05 a.m. The exact same time that she saw an accident 10 years later. Wow. Isn't that wild? All right, I want to play a quick video because this one is just freaky. This was on Court TV.
We've seen how strange things can get at night. Well, things are about to get a whole lot stranger. This mysterious driver tricks cops into thinking he's about to pull over, then all hell breaks loose. The officers watching this tape get only a quick glimpse of the man behind the wheel. It's the last look they'll get. For a moment, it appears as if the driver and his car have disappeared into thin air. But in the blink of an eye, the driver comes into view again. This time, he tries to outrun the police rather than just vanish. His moves are still baffling to the police.
That's crazy. That's cool that
Isn't
they got
that
it on
wild?
video.
Yeah, the dash cam caught it all. Yeah, I mean, I didn't, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, there's nothing to it. Just follow him down. But then the cop had to slam on brakes because there's a fence there. How did that car get through the fence?
I did see a video where someone recreated this,
Yeah.
and essentially they think that this chain link fence had become detached from the
It was like
posts, and they actually just kind of flipped under the fence.
or under it. Yeah.
And then when the fence came back down into place, that's when the cops stopped.
Who gets that lucky?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Wow. All right, Lewis, tell us about the Moonshiner car.
This story comes to us from Faith Seraphin, who is a paranormal investigator in Lee County, Alabama. And she has reported that there are a number of county roads throughout the county where people have had experiences with a ghostly moonshiner's vehicle. And of course, this is Lee County, which is the Auburn Opelika area. And of course, most of this area outside of the city is fairly rural and was an area where moonshine and other illegal liquor was produced in the early 20th century. And of course, as these vehicles became prominent, these cars carrying this illegal liquor, they became known as stock cars. And this is where stock car racing and eventually NASCAR actually developed in these small vehicles that were meant to be able to move the liquor fairly quickly under the eyes of the police. But she talks about a number of experiences, including one of her own, where as a child, she was walking down one of these roads and she hears the sound of a vehicle coming, and they could tell it was a stock car because you could hear the clink of the jars in the back of the car as the car passed them. But the only thing that passed them was simply the sound of the vehicle. They never actually saw a vehicle. But there was another experience where a lady was driving down one of these roads late at night, and a car comes up behind her very fast and gets on her tail. So she decides to pull over and let the car go around her. When she pulls over, the car pulls around her and then stops parallel to her. And she looks over and realizes there's no one in the driver's seat. And the car actually gunned its engine several times and then just took off. So I can imagine that was an extremely frightening experience.
Did she name the car Christine?
Oh, I'm sure.
Wow. That is so cool. Moonshiner ghost cars. That's I love it. Wouldn't you like to see that on a movie?
Oh yeah.
Hey guys, I'm gonna call it there. We're right at an hour and a half, and we haven't even gotten to to the other things I wanted to get to. So we're going to have to do a Strange Highways dose.
Part 2.
Yeah,
Can I show you the picture I painted?
Yes. Look at there.
Oh wow.
The hitchhiker.
It is the
Resurrection
Resurrection Mary hitchhiker. There we go. Well, I tell you what. Let's come back in 2 weeks and finish this, and we can go over some. Go over some more. I honestly, in 2 weeks, I had planned on doing the Bayou Cannot Sunset Limited anniversary show, but the things that we were wanting to do for that show, we've not been able to get worked out. And we're at like, what is it, 28 years, something like that. We may have to save that one for next year, give us a lot more time, and maybe build up. Because I'd really like to go out there with a good film crew and talk about the paranormal stuff that's happened out there at the bridge. Because Lynn's own father has experienced some paranormal things at that bridge when he would be out fishing. And he knows other fishermen that have had paranormal experiences at that bridge. So we do, I mean, when we do it, I want to do it right. So I tell you what, in 2 weeks, we'll come back and we'll pick up Strange Highways 2 and talk about some of the time slips. Oh, God, some of these are really weird. I mean, it just gets stranger and stranger when we get into the time slips on these vehicles. And there are another section I called Other, just some other weird stuff that's happened on highways. But in 1 week, it's our next revisited show, SJ Revisited, with Southern Spirit Guide, Lewis Powell IV, when he first appeared on the show. So be ready for that. We're going to close this one out now. Is there anyone here with us? Did you hear that? Can you tell us your name? All right, guys, we're at. Well, Dagny's friend made an appearance.
Yeah.
All right.
Thought you'd want
See
something
ya.
cute to look at.
There you go. Be watching next week for SJ Revisited Southern Spirit Guide. You don't want to miss that. If you did last year, make sure you watch it this year. If you saw it last year, come back for the rerun. And we'll see you in 2 weeks for Strange Highways 2. Lewis, thanks again for all your stories. Dagny, thank you for your story. We appreciate y'all being here. We'll see you soon. Strange journeys, folks. Bye-bye.